You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology. Celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, the Digital Broadcast Network, and the Digital Satellite Network. Worldwide, toll-free 800-610-7035. Email xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our main radio website where you can listen to the X-Zone 724-365, as well as during the live broadcast, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Michael Horn is the authorized American media representative for the Billy Meier Contacts, which he has researched since 1979. Michael is the producer-director of the new Billy Meier documentary, The Spiritual Teaching in Everyday Life. The writer, producer, director of an award-winning new film, And Did They Listen?, as well as the co-producer of the new documentary, As the Time Fulfills, which presents an abundance of ironclad, prophetically accurate scientific evidence that irrefutably authenticates the Billy Meier case. Our other guest this hour is the one and only Stanton T. Friedman. Now, if anybody knows anything about UFOs, the name Stanton T. Friedman is well known throughout the entire genre. He is a nuclear physicist, lecturer. He received his Bachelor of Science and Master of Science degrees in physics from the University of Chicago in 1955 and 1956. He was employed for 14 years as a nuclear physicist by such companies as GE, GM, Westinghouse, TRW Systems, Aerojet General, Nucleonics, and McDonnell Douglas, working in such highly advanced, classified, eventually canceled programs as nuclear aircraft, fission and fusion rockets, and various compact nuclear power plants for space and terrestrial applications. Gentlemen, always a great pleasure talking to the both of you. And the case that we're discussing tonight is a rematch, basically, of a discussion that we had going back to September the 30th of this year, 42 days ago. Now, I have to ask you, Stanton, are you any more convinced than you were 42 days ago in the authentication of the Billy Meier case?
Well, I use a term often when people ask me, is this legit or not? Mm-hmm. And I often say, not in this case, but in general, I often use the term gray basket, that I can't prove one way or the other, mm-hmm. and people want to say yes or no. And Lord knows, I must admit that this case has got more stuff associated with it. I forget how many pages were mentioned that Billy has written over the years, but there's an awful lot, and an awful lot of pictures and so forth. And my tendency as I go through some of this stuff is I kind of like Billy, to tell you the truth. He's a gutsy sort of guy. Mm-hmm. And yet I keep getting indications that, this isn't a baseball game. You're a great hitter if you get a hit a third of the time. It isn't enough to say that there's some true stuff here. And I'm beginning to think, yeah, there probably is some true stuff here. I mean, what's a big deal?
Mm-hmm.
Guy sees UFOs, he takes pictures, but this has become well beyond your typical UFO sighting, obviously. And so I'm more inclined to say some of this may even be true. But I am also worried that some of it isn't true. And when I get that kind of a situation, life isn't baseball. We don't want to say, well, a third of it is true or something like that. That isn't good enough. And I worry about things not being true and sort of spoiling the things that may be true. But my real question is a kind of, so what? What the behavior, let's accept some stuff at face value here. The behavior here, what's the purpose? What are the aliens doing here? Why have they selected this Swiss farmer? I'm trying to make sense out of that, and I'm having great difficulty.
Well, if there's anyone who can answer that question, we've got him with us tonight. Stanton, as you well know, Michael Horn. Mike, thanks very much for joining us, buddy.
Of course.
Go ahead.
I'd like to address that, but I'd also, if it's okay, I'd like to respond and actually put this question to Stanton, because Stanton, has for decades probably been a proponent of the authenticity, if I'm assuming correctly, of the Roswell case. So do you have better evidence or even comparable evidence for Roswell that we do for the still ongoing Meyer case?
Well, we have a lot of firsthand testimony from, how shall I put this, clearly respectable people. The intelligence officer for the only nuclear weapons group, that's an awkward phrase, but the only outfit with nuclear weapons was the 509th at Roswell. And we're talking 1947. And there wasn't anybody in the world else who had nuclear weapons at that time. So the intelligence officer for that group is a very special witness. And we have a number of other witnesses. Now, I must say that I have read more garbage about Roswell than I can shake a stick at. And it bothers me. I mean, people write stuff. The debunkers write some of the craziest stuff you ever heard. I did want to ask you that because I'm going to answer your real question, but I want to build to it so we can understand why we've come to this point. Basically, with all due respect, Stan, you're saying you have hearsay. And that's fine. There's some hearsay in the Meyer case. Well, it isn't hearsay.
It's anecdotal, third-hand information. I mean, this is people will say this about
gentlemen, one at a time, please, because you're talking over each other, and the listeners won't be able to differentiate who's who or saying what.
Yeah, so let me just finish the thoughts, and of course Stan can rebut that. But we basically, you've given us somebody who has some credibility saying they've seen things. Well, we have, of course, as I said, we have a retired UN ambassador, an eyewitness to not only the ships, but the extraterrestrial. We've got her teacher, both of whom. So on the hearsay level, even, we have, and of course, I'm an eyewitness to the craft myself. I don't run around screaming about it, but I've been within 20 feet of one of the craft. So, we can neutralize the value, if you will, of eyewitnesses, all of whom might be correct, but they're going to be relegated to not the first level of evidence when you have, as you singularly do in this comparison, the Meyer case with 1,200 photographs, 8 films of video, metal samples, and sound recordings, and nothing that you have access to in Roswell. Now, that's just being said, not to create, but I just want, so we can set this up to follow through with your reasoning. So far, in our conversation, I've said that we have a body of evidence, which I referred to. Photographs are evidence, metal sample, all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And the best so far, Stan, that you've been able to do to refute or rebut it is offering me basically what's anonymous hearsay from people that you can't give me their names on, and I happen to know their names and they're not experts. Okay, and I've shown that we've already can and have substantiated even not only the physical evidence with independent expert analyses, and you can do them yourself, but we've got prophetic information copyrighted. But okay, you ask the question, okay, if this is happening, so what? Well, look, you've been representing Roswell. People would say, well, so what if there were little gray guys and we can't prove it? We have a reason for the Meyer case. And I'm going to get right into that now, so it's without further ado, as they say. That is simply this, to assist us to assure our own future survival. And I'll explain it. Since Meyer at 14 was the first person to step forward and say, We have unnatural man-made climate change, which is going to continue to grow. We have, and then you continue over here, unnatural global warming and all the manifestations of destruction to the environment. Starting in 51, we have what the Pentagon calls, uses some term like threat increasers or something. They listed them last year. The Pentagon listed a number, like about a dozen or 14 specific threats. They were exactly what Meyer foretold as a 14 and 21-year-old young man. I've got it on my website. But let's focus in even further to pertinence as to why this is presented to us. In 1958, Meyer published a document that foretold all sorts of stuff, a lot of which has already happened, including, the AIDS by name, the 2 wars with Iraq. The second one led under a president who will be the son of a former president. But he also wrote this: and it will be that fanatical Islamists carry out bloody revenge on the distant descendants of the Christians for their earlier crusades when they accomplish their deadly and destructive acts through irrepressible terror all over the world. 1958, fanatical Islamists didn't exist. We didn't know about that. In 1987, when Meyer publishes that it will be the fanatics of Islam who will rise up against the countries of Europe and all will shake and quiver, and not only Europe will be affected, but all the countries and peoples of the world, and how illegal immigrations of these people will... This stuff is foretelling what is in front of us today. Not any archaic language from Nostradamus. This is telling us, going back almost 60 years in one case, this is coming unless you people wake up and start rebalancing your relationships with each other. There are literally dozens and dozens of other specific things about not only what's coming to us, but in this same document from 87, he says the destruction of the WTC, i.e. the World Trade Center, by terrorists will only be the beginning. Let me stop so you can jump in on that.
Well, I see the picture here, and I got that picture from what I've read over the last couple of weeks, and there's a lot of it out there. And I'm still trying to figure out, where do we go? Should we make Billy Meyer I won't say president of the world, that's an awkward phrase, isn't it? The chief ambassador to mankind, somebody to deal with the governments of the world who are making such a mess of the place. And we'd probably agree on about a lot of those things. But, I don't know where to go from there. We got a guy here who's got lots of good stories. There are people who dispute a number of them, that these were predictions and so forth. And there are other people who I'm sure will say...
We've proved it.
Well, I have some people who disagree with that, but I'm not in a position where I can say, he wrote this in this year, and I got the copyright right here, and he wrote this in this year, and I don't have that. There are people who claim to have that.
I'm sorry, I sent you stuff like that.
Well,
but go ahead.
I'm trying to figure out here. You want to put down Roswell, but...
No.
About...
I'm convinced of it. I'm just saying that the arguments will fall far short compared to the Meyer case, obviously.
They're not. Well, there's a lot of crap that's been written about Roswell, and I would never dispute that.
Well, let's face it, gentlemen. The biggest septic tank ever created by mankind is called the Internet because there's more crap in it than anything else.
I think you're probably right. And,
Stan, may I jump in? You raised the point that I think should be answered, and then, if I may, because you said, well, what do we do? Right? It's not about elevating Bill Meyer to anything.
So what kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think what Stanton is trying to say is, all right, so Billy has all this information. He's getting this message from the extraterrestrials. Right. The prophecies seem to be legitimate. So what? What now? What do we do with the information that Billy has received, and why was Billy chosen?
Okay, well, let's deal with what we do with the information. And then, because the rest is, why was Billy chosen? I'll give you that answer in a second. It'll be speculative according to the information in the case. More importantly, Stan is not only a father and a grandfather, he's a great-grandfather. He sees into the future, the legacy, his descendants. I don't have that kind of a deep lineage. I have a child. I'm concerned. We are all concerned about life, the planet, our families, our descendants are okay. Yes. So here is what we're told in this case specifically and as clear as day. Nobody is coming to save us. This information, which also includes, if you will, quote unquote, the remedies, has been provided to us so that if we are interested and willing, we would test it out to see if we might be able to dig ourselves out of a hole by taking responsibility in our individual and collective lives for what this life is and has become. This is highly specific. It is the core reason for this case isn't the ETs and the UFOs. It isn't even the prophecies, though they are, they're shown to be, at this point, they're so unfailingly accurate that what more do we want to see manifest before we go, okay, what do you recommend here? Mm-hmm. So it is in the specific recommendations that we are, if we want to take responsibility to start turning this thing around. It won't happen through politics. It won't happen for sure through religion. And if people enjoy those things, that's fine. But we're down to reality now where it's not about beliefs and slogans. It's about on a law of physics basis, Stan, cause and effect rules. I think we know that's one of the operative laws of this universe. And what we are told in this case is that understanding that law and understanding how we must consciously work with it, with our thoughts and our feelings and actions, that will help us if we have the will and the wisdom to learn how to do that. And that's what the case is about at its core. And that's what the material subsequent to all of this that we've got published is teaching. A lot of it free.
The problem is, how do you do anything about any of this without involving governments, the people who rule the roost, if you will? I mean, we'll spend $1 trillion this year on things military. We, not you and me,
yeah, right.
But people on the planet Earth, the countries on the planet Earth. And we can't ignore that this is, a home of nationalism. We got a lot of countries aiming guns at each other, threatening each other, aiming rockets at each other, and occasionally setting off guns on other people, not just waiting, not just aiming, but shooting. Mm-hmm. So how does any of this then get taken from, let's assume for a moment that everything that Billy has said is true, and that there are these serious problems on this planet. And I would certainly not be one to disagree that there are serious problems on this planet. I've been saying that for a long time. And also, I think you don't talk about a cover-up, but I think it's pretty obvious that if what Billy and I are both saying is true, that governments are not telling the truth to the people.
That's
You'd
correct.
agree with that, wouldn't you?
Yes, see, I take it farther because I claim that at this point, the real cover-up is about the Meyer case. And I want to go back to answer your question about how, because you asked the right question. How do we – see, a lot of people want to argue, but when you get to a point where you say, well, how do you with this – then we are now finally, and I mean finally, in a sense, after thousands of years, mm-hmm. we're finally in a place where the people can choose. Now, I'll answer it more specifically. How we do it is this. When people like you, Stanton Friedman, who has, you're a credentialed scientist, you have your own particular case that you're most interested in, a proponent of, and all of that. And just to be fair, and it's not any kind of attack, you've not been predisposed to accept the reality of the Meyer case. And I'm not claiming that you're a big proponent at this moment, but you've said, well, assuming it's true, okay. So here's the answer: if someone like you reaches out even to people in this pardon me, UFO community and start saying something to them like, you know what? This appears to be valid and authentic. And we've all been spending a lot of time running in various directions about various UFO this and alien that. And if we're honest with ourselves, we can't, for the most part, maybe my case, Roswell excluded, we can't put anything significant on the table worthy of hard fact-based sciences. However, we now have something that there appears to be a body of evidence. If, someone, we know this guy, Michael Horn's certainly been out there making noise about it. Nobody shot him down effectively on the evidence, really. What if we decided to rally around and just to get to the meaning? Because let's face it, Stanton, if extraterrestrials are visiting this world, like you say, there's got to be a reason. It isn't to give us careers as speakers, nor for us to chase lights in the sky.
Hardly.
Right?
No,
this
I
is
agree.
about our
It's
future,
the question
future
that comes
of our
up
children,
all the
etc.
time. What do these guys want here? And there's a whole chapter in my book, Flying Saucers and Science, the UFO why questions. And one of the biggest why questions is why the government takes the attitude it does, and why would the aliens want to come to this dumb planet? Nobody puts it that way.
Well,
why don't they land on the White House lawn?
Exactly.
Yeah.
if they are there,
Okay,
to
here's
avoid
the
all
thing.
this, to avoid all this controversy, and to put the UFO question to bed once and for all. Because listening to you two gentlemen tonight, it made me realize that both the Roswell case and the Billy Meyer case have similarities.
In terms of their being, attacked and all that stuff, they're different.
Not only there, Michael, but no one in the Roswell case can produce evidence,
right?
Physical evidence. Billy Meyer has not provided any physical evidence.
Yes, he has.
Like what?
The photographs are physical.
No.
Sound. Wait. The sound recordings, that is physical evidence. The metal pieces, tangible metal samples analyzed by Marcel Vogel, the videotaped analysis of which was put out in 1982 or whatever. That is physical evidence.
All right. Has any government body done an investigation into the Meyer case and had access?
Who cares? You know
wait
what
a
happens
sec,
when
wait a sec,
governments
wait
look
a
at
sec,
things.
wait
They're
a sec,
suppressing
wait a
the
sec,
truth.
wait a sec, Mike. Have they been given the opportunity to examine the so-called physical evidence that Billy claims comes from these visitors?
They turned it down in 1979. Yes, the Carter administration was presented with an offer of contact in letter form from the Playaran via Meyer, handed over to the Carter administration by Lee Elders, who had CIA connections and could get it in there, and Carter administration turned it down.
But what about the president since Carter?
There's nothing in it for... Rob, I got to just tell you, because we've just gone off of something so powerful into something that's irrelevant.
Not
I don't
really.
care if Barack Obama gets up and says, because you see what happens when they do. They only shuck and jive about it. Clinton, Obama, anybody, they're only going to do that because they are beholden to the powers behind the thrones who do not want to lose control.
So what you're saying is that the government is suppressing this information beyond the control of the public.
That's why I'm saying that tonight, in speaking with Stanton Friedman, he and I together could bring this to the public. Let the public decide. Don't wait for the government to do a darn thing.
So if these here's my point. If these ETs are really out there, why do not they make contact that cannot be disputed by the media?
That violates...
How do you know they haven't?
Yeah, well, that's... As far as I'm concerned, look, I've been 20 feet from one of the craft. What do you want?
Did you take a picture?
What?
Did you take a picture?
No, I walked outside after a phone interview on October 11th. No, October 3rd, 2011 in Brazil. I finished at 10:05. I walked out the doors to take a deep breath of air, and there was a craft.
Wow.
20 feet away from me, a small mounted.
All right. I just had to ask these questions because these are the questions that people are emailing me.
Well, let me answer this. here's the thing, folks. If you wait for any government if you need permission from a government for anything, you're already way behind the 8 ball. If someone like Stanton Friedman steps forward, who has a much louder voice in the so-called UFO community than I, and says, let's be reasonable. Okay, Roswell's real. Some agree, some don't. Here we have, in terms of this kind of a case, contact, close encounters, whatever you want to call it, we have all this evidence. Mr. Horn has said he'll come forward for any and all of you as skeptics or anything else and present this with the purpose that if you can see, if you feel that you can determine that this is truthful, that the attention will be turned towards this, so we get off of all of this fractionalized running around in circles chasing lights in the sky, because if these ETs really did exist and contacted and still speak with this man Meyer, and this is their message, and they're this accurate, and they're telling us if we don't get it together, this is what comes next, don't you think we owe it to ourselves to pull together and set an example for the rest of the world that we don't need the government to tell us what to do, and we can take personal responsibility for determining the truth and acting on it?
What kind of actions can individuals take at this point
to
change the world in such a way that it goes away from the $1 trillion this year, probably be 1.2 trillion next year?
Stan, let's be honest.
And that's, go on.
Yeah. Overnight, nothing. This has all been in the works in this country for a very long time. So, according to the laws of cause and effect, what goes out, equal and opposite reactions, things take their time. However, if we don't start, we're done for sure. Here's the answer to your question. There are already around the world small groups of people quietly meeting, studying the teaching of how to do this. And there are books in English and other languages, primarily German at this point, on how to do this so that we take back the power, so that we teach our children and our grandchildren how to think, how to correct and rectify in what is, to be honest and blunt, a very long and difficult haul that will only be made much more difficult if we don't do it. Now, this is not something where I'm willing to say, okay, thanks for the conversation, goodbye. I'm available to you and anybody else because I answer emails all day, every day, around the world, people who are starting to do this. This, as Meyer said in our film in 2008, Silent Revolution of Truth, it will start slowly, like a snowball rolling down the hill, gathering momentum until it has gained such power that we have transformed into
Gentlemen,
the world.
I hate to do this, but I have to take a 3-minute break here. Exo Nation, Michael Horn, Stanton T. Friedman are here discussing the Billy Meyer case, and we'll continue on the other side of this 3-minute break as we continue coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Digital Broadcast Network, Digital Satellite Network. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here in the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. The X Zone is a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. The X Zone radio show is broadcast live from our Hamilton, Ontario Broadcast Center, Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. until midnight Eastern, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network and on our worldwide family of radio broadcast and satellite programming affiliates. UFOs, aliens, ghosts, hauntings, Bigfoot, lake monsters, unsolved mysteries, conspiracies, cover-ups, and much more.
So plan to join me, Rob McConnell, right here in the X Zone on the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net, or listen to the X Zone radio show archives 24/7, 365, and the live broadcast at www.xzoneradiotv.com. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
Welcome back, everyone. Stanton T. Friedman is our guest, along with Michael Horn. We're discussing the Billy Meyer case. And, gentlemen, I must tell you, the emails are coming in here left, right, and center. But, Michael, continue with what you were saying, my friend. I didn't mean to take you off track, but these are hard breaks, and I have to take them.
Sure. Where I see us at right now in terms of implementing what has been long advised in this case, and better late than never,
yes,
is that at this moment, Stanton and I really have an overlap here. This is bigger than our personal interests, or you call it a career, anything you want. We are looking at the future. We are looking at the families that we have and the families of humanity, and that does matter. Both of us, are over 30, to put it mildly, and it's not a matter now of it's not we're trying to get on some reality show or something. We want to make a difference. Yeah. The best legacy that we could have for this world is that we really struggle hard for the truth, to find it and to work towards it, and worked in concert with others for the betterment of humanity. We recognize, you recognize, and your listeners recognize the mess of this world, a lot of which isn't known publicly, the behind-the-scenes stuff that even all the conspiracy theorists don't know that Meyer gets told. This is the kind of thing why my passion and my urgency is to align with Stan and to say, look, I don't have great things to say about a lot of the UFO community because, for the most part, and I'm not being patronizing, with the exception of Stan, there's very few people that understand science, and it's all over the place. It's wild stuff, but they're interested. Okay, so if we could say, hey, if you're truly interested, if ETs are coming here, there's a reason. Here we seem to have a great body of evidence that addresses all this. Why don't we once and for all put this little loudmouth Michael Horn on the spot, come together, grill him and drill him and the rest of it, and see if this Meyer case thing holds water? Then what the heck? We can still love all the rest of our, alien this and all of that, but this is what it's apparently about that really impacts us, our lives, and our families. Let's get on with it. And to be simple about it, it's kind of like there's a book, like if you learn electronics, you learn the certain principles, how this goes to that. That's what this teaching is. There's no beliefs in it. They're not promoting religion or cults. It's about how things work, and specifically how we as human beings take back the power that has been usurped by governments, politics, religion, corporations, and media. Otherwise, as Meyer said in 1958, we will be biochipped and controlled to the last person on Earth by the EU and the USA. And this is underway, and it is the agenda. He foresaw it almost 60 years ago. We can help change this to a better outcome.
Stanton.
Well, I think we need to step back a little bit and realize that Michael, you haven't talked at all about the roles of governments in all this stuff. Part of my focus is looking at what governments have done. You mentioned, I've only mentioned Roswell. I've got a book that I've co-authored called Captured, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experience, with Kathleen Marden, Betty's niece. And that gives us some insight into direct interaction between aliens and Earthlings, for want of a better term. And I think that the importance in both Roswell and the Hill case is the quality of the people that were involved. In the case of the Hills, Dr. Benjamin Simon was the world's expert, and I mean that seriously, on what today we call post-traumatic stress disorder. He ran a hospital for 3,000 patients. Shell-shock war veterans was the expression back then. And his saying, which he did, that the emotional intensity, in writing, the emotional intensity in Betty and Barney as they relived their experience was every bit as deep, if you will, as that of the shell-shock war veterans. Coming from him, that means something. This is not a casual observer on the scene. When we look at the documents we have from the NSA and the CIA, that are all whited out in the case of the NSA. I get a kick out of it being whited out as opposed to blacked out the way the CIA does it. 156 pages of top-secret Umbra stuff. The very fact that it was top-secret Umbra, UFO stuff, tells you something. You know, you don't do that casually. 156 pages, you can read one sentence per page. That's proof of a cover-up, if you will. There may be a fancier phrase than that. But with the CIA, we have dozens of pages of all blacked out stuff. And yet we have the statement from General Bolender that reports which could affect UFOs are not part of the Blue Book, which could affect security, are not part of the Blue Book system.
But it seems
extraordinary statement.
But it seems that there has been nothing going forward.
Yeah.
Well, you're right, and it bothers the heck out of me, and I hope that changes maybe in the next year or so.
Well, I'd like to.
What I'm saying is we need a Goodyear, a Woodward and Bernstein to blow the lid off the cosmic Watergate.
Either that or
those guys.
Either that or a Friedman and Horn.
Be far better. Let me address some of the things you just mentioned, Stan. First of all, just about NSA and all. By the way, Meyer, I published it on my website before Snowden did. Meyer and the Play-Arn explained the whole thing about the NSA, Microsoft, the computers, 2 years before Snowden did. So again, and it's been up there, it's dated, all that. Here's the problem with all the stuff, and we kind of diverged here. So you see, there's no other actual proof of ET interaction. There is cover-up, there's this, but we don't know for sure what was covered up. Could it be what the Play-Arn told Meyer, that a lot of this has been terrestrial craft since the 1920s, secret military, which has been told to me by a former Navy SEAL, which has been told to me by a former U.S. Army Ranger. I've got the video up on my site, a guy who worked with an above top secret clearance in weapons industry. Most of this UFO stuff is not ET. And I can, if time permitted, I'll run the logic for it and we'll start to understand that there's nothing in it for an extraterrestrial race to come here and start messing around with us. Sure, there have been some, but it's not relevant to what you and I can and must do if we're to make a difference. We can throw stones at the government till the cows come home. It bears no result. It never will, because they can't be forced into revealing either what they don't know or what they do know. But we can be proactive and not look for big brother government to solve the problems that it creates. We take responsibility. They cannot overcome that, because it's an inert whole system that functions on a way that it can cannibalize itself, especially if we, the human beings, take back our individual power. Who do you think gives power to these idiot politicians and allows this stuff? It's the people, passively or actively, who do that. This Meyer case, these people are screaming at us. If you guys don't change, you're going to be biochipped slaves on your planet. Who cares about UFOs? It's the least important part of the whole thing. We've got some, we can argue it if you want. Is it real? But gosh, this is what it's about. This is why you and I and any other real thinkers in that entire movement need to come together, because we could spread this information faster and more efficiently through the networks that are already set up than me just doing it myself or with a couple other sites of people.
Mike, you still there?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, I thought, whoops.
Yeah.
Sounded like we went out. It's an interesting proposition. I'm not sure I buy into it. We've got at least 5 crash saucers of alien origin.
Who cares? Stan, who cares? So what? The universe is teeming with extraterrestrial life. What does that mean to us?
Just a sec, Mike.
What it means, the caring is, how do we convert a world which is in such a sad shape now, nationalistically oriented and all the rest, the $1 trillion military budget this year, into one which is operated for the benefit of the people? And if you don't know what the government is doing, and they're the guys with the dough, then we've got problems, serious problems. And we agree. I guess we agree that some aliens are coming here, because you're telling me Michael's in touch with, Billy is in touch with aliens. But we need the other part of that picture, and we're not doing. Look, I certainly am in disagreement with many members of the UFO community. On a technological level, on a political level, we're not all alike. Just as you and I aren't alike, obviously. We probably agree on more than we disagree when you get right down to it. But the question is, what's the right way to proceed from here? How do we get to where we both want to go? A better world for my great-grandson, if you will.
Right. Okay. Here, let me say this.
Even if you don't have one.
With the UFO focus, doing the same, that whole saying, doing the same thing over and over and getting the same result is what's known as crazy. And focusing on UFOs, look, we have the best proof of UFOs in the Meyer case, but that has been superseded. First, it's superseded by the warnings, specific scientific information, prophetic information, and then we get to the key of it. Our threatened future survival is in our hands, no one else's. So it won't matter how many ETs. You and I have to put our egos aside, whatever that means, our other considerations for the sake of our future and the future of our families and humanity, and decide that we're at least going to try and look at what is here for us, for humanity to change, to get the result you want, because it ain't good. We could parade flying saucers up and down. It doesn't do anything for our self-empowerment. That is still outside of us. I don't give a care about ETs flying around. I can't do anything with their craft. It's nice to see one, but it's up to us what we do with this world, or we won't get to the place where we too can fly through space and perhaps time. This requires the nitty-gritty of people with the same care for humanity coming together and going, how? Like you said, Stan, how do we do this? And it won't matter. Crashes, no crashes, Billy Meyer's guys sitting and having tea with him in the kitchen. We've been given the information, the warnings, and the remedies. It's not an overnight.
I'm not satisfied that that's completely true, Michael.
No, it means...
Look, I've been getting a lot of stuff, people sending me stuff, and I am not at all satisfied about all this prediction stuff. You seem to be totally satisfied. Billy has never said anything that wasn't true, I guess you feel.
I don't ever find that he's lied. Not to me, and not anywhere in the material. A man after 60-something years of publishing material, he has never been told. He's never told a lie. You've got cynics and skeptics who want to tell you he published things afterwards, but they can't figure out how it would have been possible for him to go back into every piece of paper disseminated throughout Europe and the U.S. and start to backdate it before the internet. This is why these people are traitors to humanity. They sow seeds of ridiculous doubt, and then when you look into it, you go, he couldn't have done it. And we have the copyrights, we've got the documents, we can prove it. Good gosh, Stan, it isn't about you're supposed to believe it's the answer. It's like we've been giving a teaching here. Do we want to test it, or do we want to chase lights in the sky?
Well, I certainly don't want to change lights in the sky, and I never have.
I mean the community of man, the community of UFO people, and all the rest.
Say that again? I can't.
I'm talking about the UFO community, all this focus all the time, UFO this and alien that, and at the end of the day, there's not one thing you can put on the table of any real significance. All the while, we're sitting here with this information thousands of pages from these people saying, here is how you deal with terrorism. Here is how you deal with wars. Here's how you deal with your environment. Here's how you deal with overpopulation. Here's how you deal with the cult. It's begging us to stop.
Look, Mr. Trump has solutions for problems too, but I don't buy his solutions for those problems.
But the difference is you probably know more about his solutions, which ain't too good, than you do about Myers. And okay, if you could say, fine, I don't know. I'm saying this is where we either, after tonight, our audience knows that we have either put aside whatever irrelevant dissonance and come together to test this out and to encourage the testing of it out. This would be one way to shut up the Meyer case. Let's put it to a broader audience. And we either find out that it's this, suspect 75-year-long hoax, or by golly, we've been overlooking the key to our future survival. Which
all right, gentlemen, we are coming down to the final 4 minutes. What I'd like to do is give you both 2 minutes to do a wrap up here. So let's go with the great grandfather of ufology, Stanton Friedman. Your 2 minutes starts now.
Okay. I think we have an interesting case here. We have an interesting conundrum, which is the whole UFO question in a nutshell. What do we do about it? How do we get anything done about it? We have 7 billion people on this planet. There is overwhelming evidence that there are others who have apparently done a better job of getting their act together who are coming here. Stop nuclear weapon activity and things like that, which indicates a certain concern. And we don't know where they're coming. Well, we may know where some of them come from, but by and large, we don't know how to take the next step. And one suggestion is everybody should pay attention to Billy Myers, and we'll print 1 million copies of his book, and we'll look at what he says. And I'm not saying print 1 million copies of my book. I'm saying we need a higher level discussion of people, the scientific community, and especially the journalistic community, to do their job. Get at the facts. Put it in front of the public. That's why I use the term cosmic Watergate. The thing about Watergate was a couple of guys with a lot of help and a good deal of money gathered a lot of evidence that was irrefutable, but it didn't involve national security. You had no big barriers to get over like that. In this case, we got all kinds of barriers in the way. And part of it is the egos of the Washington press corps, if you will. If this were true, we would know about it, and we don't, so it must not be true, and I'm not going to spend any time on it. I've heard that from newsmen. I was just watching Ted Koppel on a show that I did many years ago, saying everybody knows that you can't keep a secret more than a few hours in Washington. Well, that's not true. But he doesn't know how the secret world works.
All right, Michael, your 2 minutes is coming up here. Just give me a sec so I can set the clock. By the way, Exo Nation, if you'd like to find out more about Stanton T. Friedman, he's got a number of books available on his website at stantonfriedman.com. Michael Horn, let's hear your closing. Remarks.
Certainly. What I'd like to say is that we are at a point in history where the UFO question is no longer the core question. There is a cover-up. I maintain that at this point in time, it is primarily about the Meyer case because it is the only one with significant authenticated evidence and information that has proved to be painfully prophetically accurate. We can chase lights in the sky all we want, and I'm not saying that's what Stanton does, but the UFO community does, and that's what it encourages. If you care about your life and the life of your family, the future of humankind, you want to get past any of these elements of control. You don't want to waste your time being a guinea pig for military testing, reporting what craft are doing and all that. How do you do that? Well, actually, we have been publishing and advising that that information is available, sometimes freely, sometimes, like Stanton says, there's a book. We have a book called The Might of the Thoughts, which, if you want to learn how to think, will blow your mind and reroute it. But you have to study it, like any teaching. In this particular case, and in this discussion tonight with Stanton, we've come to a place where the overlaps are more important to me than the disagreements. And that means that Stanton and I, if you, the listeners as well, will hold us to this, we'll cooperate. We will work together to find a way to vet the information, to bring things forward, to finally actually have the UFO case of Billy Meyer and all the information gone through by the UFO community, MUFON, which has been the biggest opponent to the Meyer case and tried to suppress it, and we'll come to consensus as to the value of it in your life and in our lives. If we just go back to business as usual, chasing lights in the sky, worrying about aliens and all the rest of this, we are suckers, we are manipulated, and we will get the very unpleasant future that we've long been warned about by Meyer and the Playground.
Gentlemen, we've come to the end of this 2-hour debate. I have so many emails from people all over this world. I want to thank both of you. Stanton, it's always a great pleasure talking to you. I admire you both. Michael, as I've said to both of you in person, you guys are the cornerstone of what this entire phenomenon is all about. 2 separate cases, 2 separate ways of looking at it. But you are right, Michael and Stanton. You are overlapping yourselves tonight. And that shows me that there is a way to investigate. There is a way to vet what we are looking at, what we are hearing. And I hope that you both work together in the future to help bring this conspiracy blowing it sky high. Stanton, thank you very much for joining us. Exonation, Stanton Friedman's website is stantonfriedman.com. And Michael, thank you for joining us, my friend. And for more information on Michael, his website is theyfly.com.
May I say quickly, Rob, it's always a 2-for-1 for me. If anybody buys one of my DVDs, they get 2 of them as long as they mention your name or the show.
All right, Stan, what about you? Give yourself a plug here, buddy.
Take a look at the list and look at my books. If you want to know about abductions, if you want to know about Roswell, if you want to know Operation Majestic 12, Top Secret Magic is the game for you.
Gentlemen, until the next time we have the pleasure of meeting, take care of yourselves. And remember, always keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light, guys. Take care of yourselves.
Take it easy.
Good night now. Exonation, once again, if you'd like to contact Stanton Friedman, his website is stantonfriedman.com. And for Michael Horn, theyfly.com. This interview will be available on the, on Facebook. I'm sorry, it'll be available on Facebook, that's right. YouTube, Speaker, iTunes, and all over the internet. So if you have somebody that you would like to take a listen to this and be part of the solution, not part of the problem, listen in. Send me your emails, exxon@exxonradiotv.com. My name is Rob McConnell. I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue right here in the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology in the place that I've been calling the X Zone for the past 25 years. I'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.